Hey, everybody, welcome back to Matrix Mash. I'm Emily Moyer from Off Planet Radio, and my buddy Robert Phoenix from 11th House Astrology is with me. Robert, hello.
Hey, what's happening, Emily? What's happening out there, internets?
It's a crazy world. We're here for another Matrix Mash. It's been a few weeks, but we're here to mash it up tonight. We're going to talk Isaac Kappy, John Cena, Quentin Tarantino, Jordan Peterson, and past lives. Robert Phoenix, here we go.
Yeah, hey, before we jump into that, you were watching Serena Williams today in the French Open, and you asked me to watch it. I couldn't watch it at the time. But what was going on with Serena Williams today?
I just was watching a little bit at work, and I was like, okay, so she lost the first set, but she came back after that. Or was it the first set? Yeah, she lost the first set, and then she came back and she won her match. It's the first round of the French Open. But I was looking at it from afar, and I'm like, oh, she's back to wearing kind of a normal tennis outfit. The last few Grand Slams, we've been treated to these very bizarre, like, space-looking outfits that seem designed to really hyper accentuate how odd her body is and whatnot. But then when I got closer, I realized it wasn't really a skirt. It looked like some kind of toga or diaper, and it was zebra striped. It's just like, wow. The madness continues.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't know if this is supposed to be like a signal that, the Roman Empire is back, or, and so they have, Serena, they're a goddess wearing a toga, and, women are now men or whatever. So I don't know, but it was an interesting outfit. I did find it less offensive than some of the prior ones. I didn't find myself feeling, assaulted by looking at it, but it was awfully weird.
Yeah. Well, that's been kind of her trademark, right?
She had a weird period of time, like in the late 90s, where she was into wearing all these weird, almost like Tina Turner or Mad Max looking outfits on the tennis court back when she was sponsored by Puma or designing some of her own stuff. And then, she always has her own stuff. None of the other players, she's sponsored by Nike. None of the other players will have the same outfit as her. Like you see, most of the other players that are sponsored by Nike, will have several of the players will be wearing stuff from the same line. But when you have, for Serena, Roger, and Rafa, basically nobody else wears the thing that they're wearing. They all have their own lines. I think Maria Sharapova has her own line as well. But so for a while it was just she had different stuff than everyone else, but it was fairly standard looking tennis stuff, maybe a little weird. She likes fashion and whatever. But since she's come back from having the baby or whatever, right? Right. It's just been the theater of the absurd. It's been bizarre. I mean, really bizarre.
So do you have me on screen share? Can I share images?
Oh, let me make you able to share images. Here we go. Make you co-host. Bingo. Go ahead.
Beautiful. All right. So let's give people a visual here. We're talking about, because I found the image. So this is what we're talking about, right? This is what she was wearing today? That's
the outfit, but if you can get it, yeah. So I didn't see her with the tank top on. By the time I tuned into the match, she had a longer sleeve shirt on because I think it was cold. Mm-hmm. If you can find another angle, you'll see that the shorts are sort of tucked in a weird way, almost like a diaper or a toga or something.
Yeah.
That's how it looked from the angle I was watching it from.
So apparently, and I got another image, which I'll show you.
Okay.
And this is something she's cooked up with Nike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of her stuff is, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to show you this image. And so this is what we're talking about. This is the promote. So she created this before, and obviously, and Nike is using this as marketing. It's called the X Cape.
The X Cape. That's really
X-Cape,
interesting.
Right? And now we're about ready to see a new X-Men movie. Mm-hmm. Coming out, right, which is the Dark Phoenix. This is the rise of the Dark Phoenix.
Ah.
Okay, so we have...
I did see that billboard for that with the girl with the X in her eye, the fire thing, and yeah.
Right, so this is called the X-Cape or the X-Scape. So Nike sponsored this. And it's hitting right at the same time the new X-Men movie with the rise of the Dark Phoenix.
And did you see Madonna's performance last week at some Eurovision something?
Oh, the Eurovision thing.
And she had the X over her eyes. She was doing like a prayer, and she was performing with some rapper and whatever, and she had an X on her eye. Yeah.
Yeah, that Eurovision performance got roundly sort of
it was so weird.
catcalled. It was, yeah. So did you see the whole thing?
I just watched the Madonna thing. Elisa E sent it to me.
Okay, so one of the things, let me see if I can find an image of that so we can, some people haven't actually seen that. Let's just take a look. So one of the things that Madonna Eurovision, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Eurovision.
She looked like some sort of demented Raggedy Ann pirate doll it was so weird.
Yeah.
And it was like a Beltane ritual and a Satan or something, going on with the Like a Prayer. I mean, Like a Prayer is an amazing song. It's one of her best songs. And this was very weird. I mean, it was obviously a ritual, it was very strange.
Let's show people what the hell we're talking about here. It is very strange. So here's the getup. Let me make the image a little bit bigger. And we can give people the important visual here. There she is.
Right.
I mean, just take a look at this. She's got the X over one eye.
The X on her chest. She's got some sort of like snake eating its tail or some kind of animal something on the bottom. She's got a crown on.
Right. And she's wearing the dark robes.
The dark robe. She had all the red lights in the background. She's got the red lipstick on. She was doing all this weird stuff that the closest thing I could say that it looked like when you watch the Beltane ritual from the, what's it called? The Vatican?
Yeah. Yeah. So apparently one of the
and then it was like apocalyptic videos going. Yeah.
Right. So here's another image from there. It's kind of an interesting one. So let's bring this up. It's kind of a different image where she is. It looks like what we've seen here as part of the. I guess towards the end of the song, might even be the ending of the song. So we've got people in gas masks.
Yep.
That are laid out, right? And they have garlands of flowers in their hair.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think these people are representative of different countries. This is a Central American country, is it not?
Yeah.
That Costa Rica.
And they were all in white gowns, yeah.
Yeah. So this
combat boots on.
Yeah, this is some kind of Denver airport.
Right. Yeah.
You're on live. This is what it is.
Yeah. That right? I didn't think about that. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and it's predictive programming, 101 really, and they can't not let go of any kind of public performance now without it becoming some camp satanic ritual.
Right.
I mean, even if I were interested in Satanism, this wouldn't interest me after a while. I'd be turned off by it.
Yeah.
Like if I was a real Satanist, I'd be offended by this shit.
Well, this is like kitty Satanism, right? This is like Hello Kitty, like Satanism at the Hello Kitty shop.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like this,
Sanrio does Satanism.
I'd be a pissed Satanist if I saw this.
Right.
And if I was a Satanist, which I'm not.
Right.
But it's like so camp, so over the top, and it's kind of done for public consumption, and a lot of it seems to be kind of like, really camp, kind of in your face, like post-adolescent gay outrage. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck you, Christians, and, fuck you all you normal people. This is about as close as we can get to so-called normal people. About as close as we can get to doing something really outrageous on stage without crossing lines. And trying to be somewhat highbrow, about the whole thing. It's ridiculous, and I think people are getting tired. They're getting tired of it.
Well, she's also become such a caricature of herself.
Yeah, it's gotten pretty bad.
It's embarrassing. It's sad. It's sad. I really liked her when I was younger. I'm sure on a certain level, it was all being used. I know for sure that it was all being used for a certain level of mind control and, all that kind of stuff. But there was a time when it was like, okay, she's kind of cool. Some of those early songs were cool, Back in the early 80s, they were very dancey. They were very fun. It was fun. You know what I mean? And now it's just like, she's an old woman and she is on stage who has children, and she's on stage doing this stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, you have tons of money, dude. Like, either make something beautiful or go away.
Yeah, it was really interesting. She broke through to another level with that Ray of Light record.
Mm-hmm.
And that was produced by William Orbit. And
That was a great record.
I thought, wow, Madonna is maturing. She's growing up. This is fantastic. And then she followed it up with some kind of, trashy kind of Euro house thing. It's like, ugh. She just couldn't get out of the seamy side of the street, right?
Yeah. Well, and then it's gotten increasingly ridiculous with each album after that too.
And now she's pushing really hard with this new tour, and it's just not going to end well for Madonna.
Nope. They're going to do the same thing with her that they're doing with Serena Williams, right? Like, this person has dominated her scene for so long, right? And ultimately she's being used to mock the public, but she's being mocked at the same time. She looks ridiculous.
She looks ridiculous.
Looks ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You can age, you can be a huge star and age gracefully and go out on your own terms like a Tina Turner did or something like that. You know what I mean? You don't have to do it like this.
Well, the only thing I could think of is that, there are deals that she's made.
Oh yeah.
And she has to follow the rules of the deal. Yeah. And if they tell her to go out in front of people and debase herself, she does.
Yeah.
She's going to do it. She has to. Part of the contract.
Yep. Part of the contract.
Yeah. So it's not going to end well. She doesn't have any artistic control or artistic creativity, and she's kind of, limping along to the finish line.
Yeah.
And she's got no say in how it all ends.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
Agreed. All righty. So now that we've given our Serena Williams and Madonna update, what you got for me?
Yeah. So, where do we go? Let's talk a little bit about Isaac Kappy.
Okay, this is a person in a story that I have. I mean, of course, like, I've heard the name and I think I understand a little bit what he's about, but this wasn't a story that I latched on too much. So,
okay, so it was floating out there, right, for a while, and he kind of made a big splash or big impact, and I'm curious as to, like, were you not interested? Did your instincts tell you to stay away from it?
It's so funny that you asked this, because I was thinking about this today because I knew we were going to talk about this.
Yeah.
It is a really interesting thing with all of these things, like with all of the conspiratorial stuff, with all the false flags, with all the shootings, with all the stuff. Some of them really grab me and some of them don't. And when the ones that don't grab me, it doesn't mean that I don't think they're real or they're not real. I don't think it's not that I don't think that they're a thing. Like, for example, Sandy Hook didn't really grab me. The Boston bombing did. I did pay a good amount of attention to 9/11. I think Oklahoma City is far more interesting. Some of the shootings, like, really grab my attention, and others I'm just like, I don't know why, but for some reason this didn't grab me. And I'm fairly suspicious anytime somebody who says they're who is a celebrity or is some kind of Hollywood insider or whatever comes out and people, start, I was suspicious of Corey Feldman, suspicious of, any of these people that do this. I don't know why. I can't say I have like some specific reason, but intuitively, like, I tend to think that people who are actors are full of shit. I'm from Los Angeles and I was in the business when I was younger and I did not like it. And I got out, and they're all around me. And, I can say that for the most part, most of them are full of shit. And so and then with some of the stories, there has to be some certain kind of weird element that grabs me in a way that, for any of these kinds of events or stories or whatever. And then I'll be really into it. And other times I'm just like, eh.
Yeah.
So tell me why this one grabbed you.
Well, I mean, before I do, the whole Corey Feldman thing, if you were following Corey Feldman at all, you knew that Corey Feldman was, really suspect in his character and in his nature. And if people haven't seen the two Coreys, I think it was on I think it was on their network. Watch the last two, I think there were like 4 or 5 episodes, and it was about them coming back together, and they were doing therapy. And it's a really weird premise for a show. And Corey Haim, who's the other Corey,
who's dead now,
right? And he was really struggling, and he was struggling but he was trying to get better. Yeah. Right. He was both of them apparently had been abused and violated. And Corey Haim really seemed to have the PTSD kind of effects of that. He could not separate himself from his drug addiction.
Right.
And he was going through it and getting better on this show. In the meantime, he was also having very sort of intense confrontational moments with Corey Feldman. And Corey Feldman at that time had gotten married to like this penthouse. Who seemed a lot like Corey's handler in a lot of ways. And so they're going through this kind of therapy thing, and it's clear that Corey Haim is beginning to go like this, right?
Yeah.
And get off the train.
Yeah.
And at one point, he'd taken a diazepam or something like that. This is being Corey Haim.
Yeah.
Because it was a prescribed drug to help him deal with his anxiety. So something happened, and it wasn't terrible, but it got back to Corey Feldman. So Corey Feldman, Todd Bridges, and Pauly Shore show up at Corey Haim's house for an intervention.
Oy vey.
And if anybody wants to see gaslighting at work, I highly recommend just watching that part of that episode. By the time they leave and Corey Feldman leaves, it's pretty clear what side one Corey's on and what side the other Corey's on.
Yeah.
And Corey Feldman is clearly on the handler side. And it's very depressing to watch. And not long after that, Corey Haim winds up overdosing, right? Yeah.
Well, it's always interesting to me. I mean, Todd Bridges was always in a lot of trouble, but he survived. Dana Plato, who was also on Different Strokes, she was in a lot of trouble. She did not. You know what I mean? Corey Feldman survived with this. Corey Haim did not. Like, what is going on with that? That seems to be a common theme, that when multiple people from a show struggle, one of them seems to come out of it, somewhat okay, and one of them not, right?
Yeah. When you go into Corey Feldman's background, it's a lot different than Corey Haim's.
Yeah.
Corey Feldman's older sister was a member of the second generation of the Mickey Mouse Club.
Oh.
Yeah. So everybody knows the first generation with Annette Funicello and Frankie Avalon, right?
Right.
And then everybody knows sort of the third version with
Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake.
Yeah. Ryan Gosling is on there too, by the way. But there's a sandwich. It's the return of the Mickey Mouse Club, and Corey Feldman's older sister.
Interesting.
Is in it, and then Corey Feldman's father is part of one of these weird kind of bubblegum groups that came up out of New York in the 1960s. It was like back then. There were these songwriters that worked in the Brill Building and in and around the Brill Building, and they're like, that's where Neil Diamond comes from. That's where Carole King comes from. I think Glenn Campbell spent a little time there. Anyway, so his father comes kind of out of that tradition, and they wrote like these ridiculous kind of bubblegummy pop songs just for cash and money.
Yeah.
So his father comes out of that world. And then eventually moves to Los Angeles and gets involved in the music. So you never hear much about Corey Feldman's parents, but they have their hooks into the entertainment business.
Right.
And I would not be surprised if they had, let's just say, fiduciary relationships with their kids.
Yeah.
Okay. And you never hear him talk about his father. You never hear him talk about his mother. All you hear him, Corey Feldman did emancipate himself at around 16 or 17. That did happen. He went through the legal process because apparently his parents were jacking with his money.
Right.
So anyway, you just go down the Corey Feldman rabbit hole, and it's just not. And this does relate to Isaac Cappy, by the way, because he does sort of lash out at Corey Feldman.
Is Isaac Cappy an actor?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. So He is like a C minus actor, like a C minus role, maybe C plus.
Okay, so I know he sort of inserted himself into the Pizzagate narrative.
Right. So his acting career, if you could call it that,
Okay.
spanned appearances in Thor. He was in Thor.
Okay.
He was in Breaking Bad. So he had a
Oh,
career.
that's why he looks familiar. He was in Breaking Bad. I used to watch that.
Yeah, he had a career. It wasn't great, but he was getting paid and he had roles. Now, what he did is he nestled himself into a scene with the comedian Dane Cook.
Yeah, okay.
And Seth Green.
Okay.
Who's an actor, and Seth and Seth's wife Claire became very good friends. They used to have these game nights at Dane Cook's house.
Okay.
There's like just literally, dozens and dozens of these photos on Instagram. I don't know if they're still there anymore, but they were, of all of them hanging out. They'd go to Dane Cook's house, they'd play all these games, right? Probably drink, get high, whatever.
Okay.
And so that was his world. He was very close to Claire and Seth Green. Seth Green made a joke one time about this passage in between his wall and another room.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, and this is where we keep the children.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So Isaac Cappy began to kind of take notes on all this stuff. And then, of course, he heard certain things about certain people in the business, like Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks. And his first Periscope video blew up, right? I mean, it blew up. People don't have hit records anymore. They have like first videos.
Yeah.
And it blew up, and he was, riffing on Periscope, and he was talking about Tom Hanks, and he was talking about Steven Spielberg, and he was talking about Seth Green and Claire. And he was very close to Seth Green and Claire. Like they were friends. And then perhaps it was his conscience. I don't know. Some people believe that he was so moved. There's this, like, he definitely went from being in Hollywood to being out of Hollywood. Because once he made that video, he was done.
Okay.
He was just done.
And so is there any question as to whether this was an organic thing or a setup thing?
Well, I mean, I looked at his chart. I did his chart. And
I remember you did his chart, yeah.
Astrologically, there was something going on. I mean, the guy was actually being triggered, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being triggered. But, one of the things that I think you and I have talked about before is that when we talk about something, sometimes it can be more than one thing.
Right.
Right. So I think he was kind of being moved on some level by what was happening internally and astrologically. And the reverse of that was that he probably kind of hit a bit of a cul-de-sac in his career.
Yeah.
So the two things don't have to be mutually exclusive. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So he puts out this Periscope, and then, he's like making all these rounds on all these different programs and shows, and Nathan.
Right. He was on with Nathan Stoltman and all that stuff, right?
Right. And then Fiona Barnett took him under her wing, and she became very fond of him.
Okay.
They became almost inseparable, right?
Huh.
Now, first of all, I don't think it's all that great of a revelation.
No.
Perhaps Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg, might be pedophiles.
No.
I don't think, and anybody who's been kind of, circling that drain for a while.
Well,
right?
Here's the deal. I don't want to say everybody, because there's a lot of people in Hollywood, and some of them are just, people with dreams and actors and who are just jobs, and they're just making $100,000 a year, and they're not, whatever. But anybody who is big time either is one or knows which people are, and they're not saying anything. And
right.
At this point,
right.
that makes them culpable of something.
Now, again, I've shared this story before, and it comes from an actor that I once knew in Hollywood, and he had some roles. If I told you the show he was on, you probably might even recognize him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he told me that, and he'd been around Hollywood all of his life. His father was a script writer, okay? So it wasn't like he just came in on a bus from out of town. He knew the game inside and out. And he told me that if you wanted to have like a serious agent in Hollywood, an agent that, casting director picks up the phone, and there are 5 people at the top of that call list that they're going to call,
Yeah.
right? You want one of those 5 guys that you had to pay a price for that.
Yep.
Didn't matter if you were a male or a female, right? So essentially, they had to break Solomon's seal.
Yeah.
So you had to take it in the bum.
Yeah.
It didn't matter who you are. If you wanted to get to that level, right?
Yeah.
So just do the math on that. Just do the math on that. Like anybody who's anybody had to cross that line.
Right.
And so where do you go from there? What happens after that? What happens psychologically? What happens spiritually once that line is crossed? There are people.
Well, also, and certainly once that line is crossed under those circumstances, right? For that purpose, you know what I mean? Like,
well, it's a power move. It's a power move, right?
Yeah.
I mean, basically the manager's saying, I own you, body, mind, and spirit.
And it's a completely different thing than whatever. If you're in a long-term intimate relationship with somebody and that's, whatever, that's a totally different.
If you're consenting adults, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. But when a deal is being made around that.
Right.
Right. Like that is yeah. Yeah.
Right. So it's a good fine point to bring up.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's the deal aspect.
Yeah. That's what, yeah.
So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So Isaac Cappy began to talk about Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg. And so I'm like, okay, well, I did his chart. I got into it. I'm like, man, this guy's playing fire. I mean, I saw it in his chart. He was playing with fire. He had Mars transiting his ascendant and going retrograde into his 12th house. And I just like, man, this dude better be careful. And lo and behold, whatever happened. But along the way, I continued to watch some of his videos on Periscope. And I thought they were, for, lack of a better term, I thought they were embarrassing. Mm-hmm. Really embarrassing, because it seemed like he was skimming around, trying to find talking points, trying to find sort of the same kinds of research that people like me, you, and Randy do on the internet, and right. Grabbing something, and then talking to his Periscope group, which happened very, very quickly. And I was watching people in their comments like, "This is ridiculous. I'm out of here." So what we had somebody who maybe spontaneously awakened, or maybe was in on, I don't know.
And thinks every thought and revelation he has is newsworthy and worth making a video that people will follow.
Right. But then shortly thereafter, he was also friends with Paris Jackson.
Okay.
And he assaulted Paris Jackson.
Okay.
During this time.
Okay.
So she had to get a restraining order.
That doesn't seem very smart.
Well, it seems imbalanced, right? I mean,
yeah.
Here you've just kind of, hit a version of the third rail, and now you're attacking the daughter of, one of America's theoretical great icons, of course, before the film came out.
Simultaneous, but I mean, he's great icon. Some people say he's a pedophile. He's not here to defend him. All this kind of, right? Like, it is a weird, like that was the person he got into that situation with, is bizarre.
Right, exactly.
Unless it's not.
So, I haven't seen the video yet, but Randy and Thomas Williams just did a big thing. Yeah. About like the truth community and
right.
And I thought, like if you go back and you look at the videos of Anthony Sutton, which you can find on YouTube, they are profound. They are deeply researched. This was a guy who was a fellow at the Hoover Institute at Stanford, and he went in and he dissected skull and bones. He dissected the relationship between the United States and Russia, and that bed was sort of the foundation. He came up with the Hegelian dialectic.
Right.
We'll talk about that. We're referencing Anthony Sutton, and then look at where we are now. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if this is really, I haven't seen Randy and Thomas's video, but I'm wondering if this, if this is the tone and the tenor of it. I think it might be. And Isaac Cappy kind of fits in that mold. He was somebody who, had a matchstick, was incandescent, and had no preparation, right? He stumbled onto something, You know, maybe it was this thing with Seth Green.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kind of went off, and he became kind of unmoored in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying that, like, okay, so you're saying that Randy and Thomas were talking about these kinds of people that show up in the community
Yeah.
and do this kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah. So Isaac Cappy is like another version of a Corey Good or whatever.
Well, yeah, and again, I looked at his chart. Something was happening there with him.
Well,
But
I think with all of these people that show up and capture attention, whether it's deserved attention or not deserved attention, it only takes hold because there is something going on with them, right? There's something energetically that is, whether there's actually a conspiracy behind it or whether just energetically things are conspiring to bring about this moment where this person captures people's attention and is able to, you know, generate some sort of bullshit or whatever, right? Like, or not, or generate something that is actually profound, right? Generally something is happening, you know, with these people. I don't think any of it's by accident.
No, it's not by accident. And in a lot of ways, the system has been kind of rigged in that regard. And the reason why it's been rigged in that regard is because there's no resolution.
Yeah.
No resolution. You can have sort of the burning moments, right? You could have the olive bush moment, right? You know, what with the burning bush moment, you could have that. And anybody who's had an awakening experience has had that moment.
Yeah.
We've all had that moment at some point in time in our lives. You put the sunglasses on, it's like, you know, you can see the signs, right?
Yeah.
And what you do with that moment from that moment forward is very, very important.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm a little bit older than you, but, you know, my real kind of wake-up call happened. It was progressive, I would say. But my real wake-up call happened in 1989, 1990, when we went to war with Iraq. And prior to that, I spent...
The first war. The first one.
Prior to that, I spent between roughly 83 and 90, like delving into myself and looking at my shadow and going to Findhorn and, you know, trying to understand kind of the spiritual, you know, litmus, spiritual DNA inside of me.
All right.
And so when I went through that wake up moment, I had that whole and I'm not saying I'm anything special, but I went down a path of like rigorous self-examination. And then when I hit that wake up moment, that rigorous self-examination and a lot of the kind of metaphysical experiences that I had kind of joined that. Yeah. So moving forward, I kind of had something to, you know, ground me with. And then you watch Isaac Cappy's last video, he basically calls himself a Judas. And then he realizes, or this is what he tells people, that he really was looking in the wrong place. And the wrong place was out there and not in there with him. Now, this gets back to a really important thing that I think Randy and maybe Thomas were hitting on. I don't know, I haven't seen the video yet, but in the movie Network, which is a famous movie, there's a character played by Peter Finch. His name is Howard Beale, and he gets up, he suffers a breakdown as part of this newscast, and he says, I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Yeah, I know. I'm familiar with that famous line, yes.
Okay, so what happens is that he has the burning bush moment, and then he has everybody, they are with him, right? People are with him, and then what happens is he has a sit down with Ned Beatty, who's the head of this corporation. And Ned Beatty basically tells him, you're messing with the powers of God. And then Howard Beale comes back and basically says to everybody that, you know, well, I wasn't wrong, but it wasn't really right either. And then he, you know, basically chimes in and puts just a wet blanket on everything. And I think Patty Chayefsky knew that people would wake up, that there would be people inside of, if not the media, certainly the alternative media, who'd have these moments. And at some point, right, whether it's Isaac Cappy telling people that he had betrayed them, because he betrayed the cause or whatever, or was Alex Jones going through the things that you and I have talked about, that at some point this whole thing would sort of invert and turn on itself.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where we are. That's what he's symbolic of.
Absolutely. I mean, what we see here as the mainstream media, becomes exposed and becomes, people are starting to realize and not watch it, rather than it folding, what instead has happened is that YouTube has turned into the promotional arm of the mainstream media. At the same time, people stopped believing the media, the thing that was supposedly the, the platform for independent media or individual creators suddenly, became the promoter of the mainstream media. So now instead of watching it on the TV, it's being recommended to you in your YouTube feed. I mean, when I go and watch one of your videos now, Robert, there's no below it. It doesn't recommend other videos you've done. It's got, the most, like, there's a few kind of alternative-ish things. Like they might recommend a TED Talk, you know what I mean? Or a Joe Rogan show or something like that. But also shit that's in there is like regular mainstream media stuff or Vice.
Fox News
or see it, whatever. So it is now like, okay, we couldn't, we got exposed here. So now we're going to infiltrate the thing, like the independent media and saturate them with our bullshit. And so they, that's what, it's the wet blanket, right? It's the wet blanket effect. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah. And compared to Twitter, YouTube is a veritable, Freelandia.
Yeah.
I mean, Twitter is even worse. Yeah. I had maybe I've got a 15 minutes of flame Twitter feed. I think I put up 1 or 2 shows, maybe.
Yeah, you texted me and said they took your video down or they deleted you.
No, they suspended my channel.
Why?
Somebody complained about my one video. All it takes now is to
and you probably have what, 100 followers on that Twitter, on the 15 minutes of flame Twitter?
If that's, I have, it was totally ridiculous.
It is silly. I mean, and what's really interesting about the whole thing too is like, so you know how we got, we didn't get a strike, but we got like this weird thing when you and I did that big expose on Joe Rogan, right? We got this weird thing noticed saying that like, we got a claim, right? And so they would either get the money from monetization of our video, which we don't monetize on Off Planet Media, so there's nothing that, or they were able to look at the data about our video, like they could see how many people watched it, how many people liked it, the comments and stuff like whatever, right? They could have access to the back end of it. And so I thought that was interesting. But I heard just Joe Rogan the other day talking on his show about like they won't play. So even though I don't know how much of this is coming from Joe Rogan or from people who control Joe Rogan, but he was like, we can't even play other people's YouTube videos because we'll get a copyright claim, right? Like, you know what I mean? So it's happening to him, but he's doing it to other people. You know what I mean? So it's in this.
Here's what I think.
Yeah.
I think because I had a copyright claim come from Russell Brand a couple of weeks ago. And I don't think Russell Brand was watching my show.
No.
I don't even think Russell Brand's people were watching my show, okay? Because it happened literally within an hour of my show.
Right.
I think what YouTube has done is they've created a bot and an algorithm that goes through and automatically every video gets uploaded and it gets scanned for any external imagery. And as soon as they get that little blippy thing, they go and they look at it, and they will immediately look at whether or not the person who has the person whose video you've used, if they have copyright infringement kind of opt-ins, right?
Right.
So if they have the opt-in,
and Joe Rogan does, because he does make copyright claims on people who steal his comedy clips, and I think that's okay.
Right. So really, I think it's more of an automated process.
Yeah. But it's annoying.
Well, of course it's annoying because now AI is unilaterally making decisions.
Yeah.
It's been taken out of, unless, of course, the final arbiter is a human, right? And to be honest with you, I didn't use more than maybe 2 minutes of that clip.
Yeah.
but now
And
it's like,
yeah, the fair use doesn't seem to be in effect anymore.
no, it's not. And I even linked to the video, and I wasn't even really like, being a smart ass or bad mouthing or, critically breaking it down a little bit, but it wasn't like I wasn't like I was out to get Russell Brand or.
No, we've talked about Russell. There's lots to like about Russell Brand, and there's some stuff to not like about Russell Brand. That's how it is with all these characters.
Anyway, I think it's automated now, and that in some ways is even more frightening.
Yep.
Right, because it's kind of like, when you go to customer service and you try to change something, the person says, "I'm sorry, I can't do it."
Well, that's the whole thing with YouTube. There's no one to contact. You can't contact anybody if you have a problem.
Well, you can contact somebody if you have a complaint against the video. They make that abundantly clear. Trust me.
Right, but you can't. There's no and even with Patreon, it's like there's no customer help desk where there's a person you can talk to. Everything is done through sort of emails to nebulous departments or through automated kind of crap. And and it's not because they don't want to have to be responsible for anything. And so if they make it so that there's no one you can talk to, then it can just be this endless circle of bullshit.
Right, you're in this kind of Kafka-esque universe, right?
Yeah,
where you're just going in circles and want to pull your hair out. And it also saves them money, so it's a win-win for them.
Yeah.
You get sucked into the vortex of their system, and they get to save on customer service people.
Yeah. Okay. So what happened with Isaac Kappy? He did this last video. So, I heard that he said he'd turned to the dark side or something like that. What was that about?
Yeah. So Kappy, it's Kappy, not cat. It's Kappy, not cat. so he has
Jasper.
He has his last video that he does at this place called the LARPers Lounge.
Mm-hmm.
And basically he says that he fucked up and he's doing it live. It's a Periscope live. And so he's basically telling people that he was a Judas, which is really interesting because this gets into some of that Julian.
He means that in what sense?
Well, so there was a big thing on Reddit where he was doxing and outing patriots, it was like there were people that somehow were getting heat from a third party and that they had traced it back to Isaac Cappy or something.
Okay.
So that was kind of going on, and I don't know what else he was referring to, but he was basically saying that he did something very bad and that he sold his soul. And he asked for people to pray for him. And, it was really dark. And people were asking, well, did it involve kids? He said, no, but it involved money. And one of the things that he was into was gambling. Mm-hmm. He was a gambler.
All these people always have something like that going on. Yep.
He might have had some kind of bet that he plays because obviously he wasn't acting anymore. Oh,
hi, Jasper. Oh, hi, baby.
So he wasn't acting anymore, so he had to make some money. So I think somebody, probably said, "Here, place this bet," and he lost a bet, and who knows? I don't know. I'm just speculating. Yeah. Okay, but but there was more to it than just that. Like he did something, quote unquote, terrible, and he called himself a Judas, right? Mm-hmm. And
which I just looked up, and it means he was a peephole in a door. So he was a way for one group to get to another group or to see what was going on with the community.
Right.
He was using Periscope as the telescope that somebody else could, right? Somebody else could look through, and they would see who he made videos. They saw who glommed onto them, who had him on their show, which community they could next invade or whatever, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, but the Judas role is what he ascribed himself to. And what's interesting is that in the light of this whole Julian Assange thing, in which, I've been saying that Assange is like this cyber Christ, right?
Right.
The crucifixion of the cyber. Now we have a Judas character, even though they're not entirely
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, they're both awfully strange looking too.
Isaac Cappy is a little odd.
Neither of them look like normal humans.
Isaac Cappy reminds me a little of Charlie Manson. He's got a little of that Manson-esque vibe about
that. Little of that wild eyes.
Yeah, a little bit.
Isaac Cappy killed himself.
Well, supposedly he tossed himself off of a bridge in Arizona on Route 66, if that's not symbolic enough.
Right.
Now passersby try to apparently keep him from doing that. This is where it gets into really strange territory. Did he kill himself? Was he killed? Is he dead at all? We don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Because I don't.
And he just needed an exit. He needed an exit stage left because he'd made such a fool of himself, and now he's just going to he
was a limited hang.
He was a limited. Either way, he was a limited hang. Whether it was intentional on his part or whether somebody ended up using him as a limited hang, he's a limited hang.
Right.
And so was Julian Assange.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
And ultimately, so was Corey Good, right? Which was sort of what Randy and Thomas were talking about. And all of these people, like, they'll either have their character assassinated or they will be assassinated. You know what I mean? One or the other, or they will fake their death or something like that. But they will be disappeared. But you know what I mean? And you will never get to the lies they told will never be sorted out, and you'll never find out what really happened to them.
That's right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's no resolution, which is what you basically said when we started talking about this.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's how everything is left these days. There is no resolution. People, even people we like and trust, weird things happen with we like or we think we trusted or whatever. Like I'm still, and there's probably people that will hold this against me. I'm still waiting for the explanation from Ben Swan as to what happened when he was gone for a year, right? He came back and he was like, I'm back, and he's doing all this stuff. And for the most part, his work is amazing. He researches things well. He presents it very cleanly, but he disappeared and told people to trust him. And then when he came back, he said he was going to make a video explaining it all, and he never did. Right. And so there's no resolution there. And so like when these things happen with people and we never get any answers as to what happened or why, like it's hard for, you know what I mean? Like that seems to be the way that information is controlled these days, is by just never having a resolution when, something happens. There's never a resolution. You know what I mean? The person who does it is always either dead or doesn't get caught. You know what I mean?
Right. And you can even see this like in the rap world with like Nipsey Hussle.
Right.
There are people who think that Nipsey Hussle faked his death.
Right. Well, I say about just like Tupac and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And who is the other guy? Triple Extension, that guy? It's another guy who theoretically, might have faked his own death. I mean, so, we're living in this time where, reality becomes very, very flimsy. And, we've got all these kinds of, multiple parallel running narratives, and some of which.
Well, this kind of goes into what we're going to get into a little later with some of this discussion of past lives and reincarnation and stuff like that as well. Yeah. So before we kind of wind over to that, I think you also wanted to talk about John Cena.
I do. But I think ultimately what this really gets down to is that there's no closure. There's no closure. And closure is really important, whether it's a relationship or, we're not getting the type of closure that we need. And I don't think it's, so I ultimately, like if you're watching this and people watch us and they're looking for insight, they're trying to glean something that they can kind of hang their hat on. And I think ultimately it's, we cannot necessarily trust that world. We can comment on it.
Yep.
We can shine a light on it.
Yep.
At the end of the day, you're going to have to figure out like how you're going to make your life meaningful.
Yep. And it can't depend on answers from somebody else.
No, it can't. And you may stumble on something and it may be really interesting, right? And that's
but that can't be how you decide if your life is important or not.
Right.
Like these people who like need answers before they're going to be able to continue on in their own life or take care of themselves or whatever. Like it just doesn't work that way. It's like you need to find the answers to a satisfying life for yourself. And then it seems like some of the answers may come. Right. But like there's a lot of people who like, we need disclosure or we need 9/11 truth or anything like that before we can heal anything. It's like, that's not how it works.
Well, I think the reason why there's such an intense urgency around that is because, we have not had like a meaningful, truthful, collective bowel movement. Everybody, the whole thing is just so backed up and impacted, right? By the way, I saw this woman who was on. You ever watch Naked and Afraid? You watch that show? It's actually kind of an interesting show. This woman did not she did not take a poop for 21 days.
Oh.
Can you believe that? 21 days. She has some stories to tell about.
Sometimes when I travel internationally, it takes a few days before I can poop, and that's unpleasant. So I can't imagine 21 days with no pooping.
Right. I think she destroyed a few bathrooms at airports on the way back.
Right. It always happens. It finally happens in the airplane or in the bathroom, airport bathroom.
Right. Well, you're an old gymnast, so you can handle those airplane bathrooms. Most people. I'm 6'3", and those go to the bathroom, and I try to avoid them at all costs. Well,
it always happens. There's I can be on a flight where there's never any turbulence. The turbulence will only happen. You know what I mean? Right when you're squatting over the toilet, right? And so you're trying to not touch it, but it starts to, you know what I mean?
That's never happened to me. That's an Emily special right there.
Right.
All right. So I think our stream has gone into the shitter. So maybe change gears here.
All right.
All right.
So next topic.
Okay. So I have to say I'm either watching sports or the Discovery Channel, a little bit of the Food Network, sometimes the House Network, whatever that one's called.
Yeah, the HGTV.
HGTV.
I never watch anymore, but I was obsessed with HGTV for a good bit, dude.
I was watching HGTV today, and it was they have a whole show based on buying homes in the Caribbean.
Right. Yeah.
And
island life and stuff.
I kind of binge watched that today.
I love that. I love binge watching it. And Discovery Channel, my favorite thing to binge watch ever was Deadliest Catch on Discovery.
We've talked about it.
I love that. Yeah.
Right. So I started to binge watch Naked and Afraid a few days ago.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I pay attention to, obviously, is advertising. Oh, by the way, I want to talk a little bit about Discovery Channel before I jump into this thing.
All right.
Discovery Channel is the whitest channel on basically paid cable TV. It is the whitest channel there is, right? Mm-hmm. The majority of the people on Discovery Channel are white, right? And
You're probably right.
And mostly for men.
Mostly men,
right? But I've noticed now, this has been going on for a while, that the way that it's like the Discovery Channel glorifies kind of white trash hillbilly culture.
Yeah.
Right. It's
or blue collar culture, white trash.
Blue collar, but they also have the crazy white people.
Sure.
Like homeschooled in Alaska or something.
Yeah.
Right? So they've got that stuff. Now they've got a new one about some guy who's they're basically going after predators or poachers or whatever down in the Everglades. And,
yeah.
More wild, crazy white people and
right.
In rural environments. Like, what kind of programming is going on here? This is kind of an interesting level of programming. Anyway, so I watch a lot of their adverts, and one of the people that shows up, whether it's on FS1, which is the sports channel with Fox, or Discovery Channel, or I've even seen him on I think it was on maybe on the Food Network. Anyway, it's John Cena.
Okay.
And let me throw you up
he shows up in the advertisements, or he's guest stars on these shows?
No. He's got a hardcore advertising campaign going on.
Can you show me who he is? Because I'm not sure who that is.
I'm gonna share. So this was John Cena's image.
Oh.
As a wrestler.
Oh, he looks like a gay porn star.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this is his image as a wrestler, and he became associated with being, in wrestling, you're a heel or you're a hero.
Okay.
And Cena was.
What's a heel?
A heel's a bad guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, heel or a hero. Cena was never a heel. As far as my knowledge goes, I'm not the expert on wrestling, but from what I can remember, he always played the role of the hero, right? So this is casting. They're casting John Cena as this all-American guy.
And what are these kind of advertisements is he in?
Anything but that.
Okay, but like are there advertisements for shoes or electronics or what is it?
Okay, so he's a spokesperson for Sky Vodka.
Okay.
So I'm going to show you
The Sky Vodka is a big hit in the gay bars for sure.
So I'm going to show you one of his Sky Vodka.
Right, like in those kinds of gay bars that have like, 2-for-1 drink specials and stuff like that. It's usually on like the Sky Vodka or something like that.
Right. So here's Cena, and it's always about being proud to be an American.
Okay.
Right. So here he is.
Oh my God, he looks ridiculous.
Right. Proudly American. And of course, he's got the Sky Vodka number 1.
What is he wearing?
He's wearing a tutu. He's wearing a tutu with these yoga tights, right?
Oy vey.
Yeah. So he's being outrageous.
Is this a gay pride parade? Or is this a marathon?
San Francisco annual
charity fun run. Okay.
So
because that's how I want to run a race, is in my tutu and yoga tights. I don't even want to do that, and I'm a girl.
If you go to San Francisco, you can do that. You just have to dodge the human shit in the streets now. You just have to dodge the human feces. You can do that in San Francisco. So this is part of his. But
I like to run, and I never like when I run. I want to run in like whatever is like the simplest, most comfortable thing. It would never cross my mind to run in a tutu or a costume.
This is straight out of the Beta Breakers.
What's that?
The Beta Breakers is a race that starts at the Bay and runs all the way to the ocean through San Francisco. And every year it's become more and more outrageous. People run as centipedes, and it's become yeah. And so this is kind of a takeoff on like the Beta Breakers.
Gotcha.
Okay, so they set him up as being this all-American guy, right? This all-America Tom of Finland guy, and so that's one still. Here's another still from the same commercial. And he's talking about how it's important to be, well, everybody's got something a little bit different that they offer America. This is part of his things on Sky Vodka. So this is, I guess.
That's him?
No. But this is a person who's a spokesperson for Sky Vodka, Trixie Maxwell.
Is that even a person? Like, what is that?
It's a transvestite.
But it doesn't even look like a transvestite. It looks like a blow-up doll.
Yeah, I know, but I think it's part of the thing, right?
Okay.
So this person is in the John Cena commercial.
Okay.
So they're Sky Vodka is obviously promoting a very wide cross section.
Okay.
Demographic. But Cena is the guy that's selling it, and he's the theoretical bridge for being all-American.
Okay.
Right? All-American, and
so it's an all-American thing to do to run around a race in a tutu. Gotcha.
Right, but this also dovetails with these public service announcements that he does. And in the public service announcements, let me see if I can.
What? Okay,
let me see if I can find. It's the same theme, but without the vodka.
And the public service for what?
For
joining the military or what?
Being an American, and here I have one here. It's like let me see if I can find another one. Hold on, I got to get a good image here. I think this might be it. Yeah. Okay. So he's proud to be an American, and he's talking about all these different stripes of being an American. So you can see here in the background, he's walking towards the camera, talking about how he's proud to be an American and blah, 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 blah.
So this is basically, it seems like there's like starting out like a promotional lead up to maybe him coming out and being the first openly gay wrestler, or are there other openly gay wrestlers?
He just, well, I don't know if they're openly gay, but anyway, he just broke up with his longtime girlfriend.
Okay.
Whatever that means. But so here we have, to see you have the gay pride flag in the background.
Right.
In the short version, there's another scene where there's a Muslim woman in a burqa behind him. There are two women, black and white, who are disabled. They're signing You know, and none of this stuff is really terrible. Like it's not, you know, it's not like they're consuming babies before our very eyes or anything. But there's a methodology here. And the methodology.
Well, it's like all those Nike commercials, right?
Yeah.
But it's weird. Like, it's almost like they've heard people commenting on the fact that, oh, there's like, oh, no straight white men in any of these videos. So now they've put like the token, you know, all American type. They're like, okay, you want that? We're going to give you that. But it's almost mockingly.
Right. So here there are two commercials that he's done, two public service announcements. One, I think, is about 1:30. The other's a long one. And here in this scene, you can see a woman soldier in the background.
Right.
And then you have these two guys with this rainbow parasol behind them. So what he's doing is they're mixing and matching with Cena. And I think he's being used. I think he knows he's being used so that he can somehow be this kind of macho bridge to this decidedly unmacho world, right? Or this typically kind of masculine or male bridge to this other kind of alternative universe that is based on identity politics.
Mm-hmm.
And so he
participating in identity politics is ultimately the American thing to do.
Right. I mean, what he's trying to do is he's trying to get middle America, an armchair guy sitting at home drinking a beer, watching, you know, some hot rod show on the Discovery Channel, to somehow, through the entrainment and the entrancement of television, get them to accept this on some level. That's his role. Now, whether or not you think it's a good role or not, that's up to you. I'm just telling you that's his role.
Well, it is weird that I've never heard of him before. Was he a famous athlete before wrestling?
Oh, no, but he was a famous wrestler. I mean, after The Rock, there was kind of John Cena, right?
But was he like a real wrestler before he became a professional wrestler?
No, I don't think so.
So he wasn't a real athlete.
He's a bodybuilder, right?
He's a bodybuilder.
He's been bodybuilding since he was like 11 years old. So what's the payoff? Okay, so here's the other.
But it is weird that you kept seeing him on those kinds of channels like the Discovery Channel that aren't really.
Oh, I know. So here's the other scene, right? So check this out. He's walking past. I mean, this is like right out of, you know, some kind of, you know, Russian or communistic version level of programming. You've got a guy in a wheelchair here who's disabled. You've got these two women. You have, you know, the duality, the black and white, and they're signing one another. And this is one of the scenes in his public service announcement. And of course, you've got sort of
you have someone in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
You have an Asian with blonde hair.
Yeah. I mean,
and another gay flag across the street.
Right. So what we're looking at we're looking at a level of programming.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we're doing. And they run this over and over again, like it's on a loop on the Discovery Channel, FS1, all these kinds of masculine macho sport. They're running this over and over and over again. Right?
Yeah.
Now, so John Cena happens to be popular on a certain daytime talk show. And this is his payoff. Right here. So there he is.
Oh boy. All right. So there's his handler.
He's a frequent guest on Ellen.
Look, okay.
They're almost kind of mirroring each other. It's kind of weird, you know. I mean,
well, I mean, a lot of Ellen is a very weird role in Hollywood.
But he's a regular guest. So you and I were talking.
Oh, he's a regular guest? I've never heard.
Well, he's not on there every week, but he's on there fairly frequently.
Every couple months or whatever.
Yeah. So you and I were talking about They Live.
Right.
And if people haven't seen They Live, it's a really low budget movie. John Carpenter, and it stars another wrestler by the name of Roddy Piper. And in the movie, he finds these sunglasses where he can see basically how corrupt and venal society has become, that everything is marketing, programming, or advertising. And behind all of it is an alien race who has shapeshifted and become humans. And with these glasses, he can see them. And there are humans who are part of their program, and they sell out. They sell out for prestige or power. It's like, you know, the hall pass to the Matrix. And Cena basically fits the profile, in my estimation. Like, the payoff is getting a regular seat next to Ellen and being cool, right? And getting Sky Vodka ads. And he may believe in this. He may think it's the greatest thing he could do as an American, as a patriot. But I see him more as somebody who's been deployed to get behind, you know, theoretically, to get behind enemy lines and start to tweak people's perceptions about what being an American is, or, you know, whatever those things are. And you may agree with him, and that's fine.
Right.
But I think that he's been deployed in this way, and he knows it, and this is one of the payoffs.
Well, my whole thing about this is, like, I find all of this stuff annoying, right? Like, if you're a cool person, I love everyone, right? Like, I like Muslims, gays, blacks, whites, purple, pink, weirdos, right? But what I don't like is the cultural manipulation around some of this, no matter what it is. I don't like Black Lives Matter. I don't like all the weird, stuff that's gone on, like, the gay community used to be a fun place to hang out, right? Like, it used to be fun to go to, like, a boy bar once in a while. You know what I mean? It was fun. Like, I did that when I lived in Austin with friends and whatever. Now it's like the whole thing is, like, weird, right? Like, that, all that kind of stuff. I don't like any of that. I don't like when there is an agenda or a movement or this there's a difference between, like, asking people for tolerance and pushing something on them, right? And in my experience, the best way to, like, get somebody to change their opinion about something, right, in a holistic way, is to have a one-on-one relationship with them and get to know them, and they can realize that the person is just a human being like everybody else, right? Like, but having this weird stuff, like, forced on us, thrown on us about whatever it is, whether it's the transgender stuff or the Black Lives Matter or the Muslim thing, like, I don't like, I'm an anarchist. I don't like any of it, I don't like the idea of borders, but I also don't think that, like, people should expect other people to pay for them when they get to wherever they're going, right? So, like, on a certain level, okay, like, we all live here on Earth. I should be able to go wherever I want, and so should everybody else. But when I go somewhere else, I expect to respect the culture and to pay for myself, right? Or, or not go, or stay home, right? Like, right? And so, this thing, though, where, like, we're importing people, and the taxpayers from one country are supporting these people who are, it just doesn't, that's not the way. If you really are trying to go for tolerance and acceptance and peace and all of that kind of stuff, this pushing things in everybody's face rather than allowing people to have their own one-on-one organic experiences with somebody who may be vastly different than they are, right, is not ultimately going to work. It's just going to make people mad. And I think that's what's happening.
Well, I think that's part of what they're doing with John Cena. Like, if you have eyes to see, you'll see what's going on. And you could be pissed off at it. Like, that's insulting on some level. Mm-hmm. It's insulting that you would try to, get inside of, my head or somebody else's head.
I don't see how that would possibly work, right? Like, to me, he doesn't look like, when I think of a typical guy, like, I think of someone like a little bit more rugged looking than that. Like, he looks like the guy you'd see on the box, on 2-for-1 drink night at a gay bar.
Right.
Dancing up there, with, dollar bills in his underwear and stuff, huge and muscular, but, he doesn't look like a typical macho American guy to me. So I think
they're trying to
They're
sell
mocking us. They're mocking us.
And mocking and trying to sell it at the same time. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's the same with the Serena and the Madonna and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right. So I can't get out of this subject without asking you if you've seen the latest Gillette commercial.
No, but I heard there's, like, some hoax transgender Gillette commercial or something.
It's not just a hoax one. There's a real Gillette transgender commercial.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what happened? What's with that?
Well, it's a woman transitioning to a man, and the father is showing her how to shave. So this is the latest in Gillette's cutting edge contribution to our culture. And by the way, he happens to be black.
Okay.
Right? So they're going straight into the heart of the Black community with this. And the reason why is because as a whole, as a culture as a whole, the Black community rejects homosexuality. They're like not into it, right? This is one of the things that
certainly, at least not openly. Yeah.
not openly, right? From that perspective, this is one of the things that Pete Buttigieg or whatever his name is, his handlers are having to face down the fact that Latino culture and Black culture generally rejects.
Did you see Mr. Reagan's video about Pete Buttigieg?
No, I didn't. Is it funny?
Yeah, I'm not going to say it. Go check it out because he does he's doing like a breakdown of all the candidates. And when the way he breaks down Buttigieg is really funny. You have to watch it. Well, he's like, that name cannot be real. At least it cannot possibly be actually pronounced that way. You figure out what the pronunciation actually is.
His last name basically means manager of chickens.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And
well, I don't think that's what Mr. Reagan was saying. He was going more of what it sounded like.
Right. With the butt gig.
Yeah.
Butt gig. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. Totally.
I mean, this is all how either the simulation is making itself so obvious, or how obviously everyone is being mocked, right? Like,
well, I think yes, people are being mocked. It's obvious, and somehow they think that providing cover in a very obvious way will somehow assuage minority groups' views of an openly homosexual president, right? I think that's part of what's going on. And these people, I think, are arrogant. I think they're arrogant to think that that's actually going to work, or that's actually going to, mean something to a voting bloc. I don't think that. Now,
so I have to say, I find this just like, this is offensive. But I also found it offensive, like in the 80s when all the satanic panic stuff was going on and all this like really evangelical Christian stuff was being, talked about all the time and shoved down people's throats. And that was what people were running on, where I'm a good, you know what I mean? Like it's offensive. It's like if you have no other qualities to talk about, like these are like either preferences or immutable characteristics, right? Like one or the other. These are not really anything about like things you've worked hard for, things you've achieved, like what your character really is. And it's offensive to me that they keep selling us on trying to sell us on things that don't actually matter at all. If the person is, I'm not interested in having any presidents, but let's say I was a person who wanted a president, I wouldn't care at all, like, who he went home to at night, or, what the color of his skin was or whatever. It's like, do you do what you say you're going to do? And are you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff, right? And this is all such a distraction from any of that.
Right. Well, I would tend to agree with you.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it seems like everybody's kind of a cardboard cutout who kind of
everybody
falls into party lines.
Mm-hmm.
Pete Buttigieg would be much more interesting if he was on the right.
Yeah.
He'd be much more interesting.
Yep.
I mean, and I think it would just be a total mindfuck in a lot of ways. But because of who he is and his platforms, which are basically the same as Beto O'Rourke's,
right? Well, they made about 6 or 8 of these candidates that all had the same platform, but were appealed to slightly different groups of identity politics people to see which one would stick, right? Like, yeah,
right. So it's almost as if, for all of your Midwestern hominess and Mayor Pete shit, and you're serving in the Army, and all the things that somehow theoretically set you apart, he's just like anybody else. He's just like anybody else on that side. It would have been much more interesting if he would have said, you know what, I'm on the right. And these are the things that I believe in. These are my precepts. Less government is a better government, blah, blah, blah. But he's not. Yeah. He's not.
Like if you were like sort of like a libertarian-ish or something like that, right?
Right. Yeah. If he'd gone down that path and be like, wow, that guy's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But ultimately, once you get past the window dressing on it, he's a cliche.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they all I mean, they're all ridiculous. Did you see this? Do you ever watch the Jimmy Dore show?
Yeah, he's funny.
Did you see the shit he did about Elizabeth Warren promoting eco-friendly killing, right? Because she was talking about how important it is to make our military bases green friendly, right? He's talking about you send a missile as long as you send it with the leaf on, green leaf on it. It's up, like. But the shtick he did on it was so funny, right? But there's like it's all. I mean, these are not even good con jobs anymore. They're really bad.
They're terrible. They're terrible.
These are Nigerian, internet scams.
They totally are. And what's really insulting here? What's really insulting is the fact that you and I and 99.9% of the people watching this video know for a fact that below top secret, right? Or rather above top secret, right? That they've got technology that'll blow our fucking minds.
Right.
And they're just holding back on this technology. Like if they wanted to, they could roll stuff out and we could get 35, 40 years ahead in
tomorrow,
less than a decade.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
And we're just, again, circling the drain on this stuff.
Right. Well, literally, if they just stop the bullshit with the covering up of the, free energy technology, cold fusion or Leonard or whatever, like that halfway fixes every problem we have. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's more than that too, right? They've got attendant technologies that are related to that. And so what we're seeing now is they have frequency technologies that can heal any disease. All they have to do is like zap you with the frequency for an hour and cure your cancer and shit. Exactly. Yeah. But they'd rather, build
do this dumb shit. Yeah.
Right. So that part is, and people tend to lose sight of that. And I know for a minute that people like, Jordan Sather and some of the other SSP people were talking about this. We'll talk. And that part of it is something I think.
But they always tie it to aliens.
Right.
They never tie it to the fools at MIT who simultaneously say there is no cold fusion. Meanwhile, you can find a video online of a cold fusion device in the MIT laboratory.
Right, exactly.
They don't ever talk about that. They just talk about how the aliens are going to bring it to us.
Right. So it's there. It's existing. It's existed for years. Okay. And this is, now we're in this turf war between Trump and the Democrats and just all this bullshit. And then these bizarre kind of neocon foreign entanglements that are just so old school and prehistoric.
That are now like super liberal, right? The liberals love them. Liberals love war now, right? Like the way that the left is smearing Tulsi Gabbard is just like.
Well, they can't have somebody come in and actually be a real person.
No.
Because they've already got the title and the deed to surreal estate, right?
Yeah, surreal estate.
Yeah. And she's a real person.
Yeah.
She talks to people in a real way. She has, real ideas. So, yeah.
She also looks like she could fuck you up, too.
Tulsi Gabbard?
Yeah, she looks like she doesn't look like someone you'd want to mess with.
Yeah, I think she's got a bit of an edge to her, for sure.
Yeah.
She's got 4 planets in Aries, so she's got a lot of firepower.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would agree with that. But the whole thing is just ultimately really insulting because we're not getting to the heart of the matter. The heart of the matter is that they're sitting on really mind-blowing technology. And I
remember when you had that guy on who talked about he had a political party that was just going to be the free energy party, and the whole platform was going to be that everybody would get a free energy device. And that was it. He would make sure that happened, and then he'd resign and move on, right?
Dave.
Or whatever.
Yeah, Dave.
Yeah. I remember that show.
Yeah, he's still around. He's still on Facebook. Dave Parker. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
He lives in Texas.
But I mean, that's actually what people should forget about all of these parties. Like right now, they just made a whole party in England about Brexit, and they won. Right? Yeah. They have no other platform other than Brexit. I think that's probably if you insist on playing in politics, that's the way to go. Is to just have one topic parties where the whole point is get this person elected to make this happen, and then that's over. Right? Like that free energy party, stop the GMO party, stop, whatever, stop the 5G party, or whatever the fuck it is, but stop having people like pick one cause and just hammer away at that as a party.
How about the pussy party?
Jasper for president.
So yeah, I agree with you. You know, I totally.
Yeah.
I mean, originally that's how corporations were supposed to work. Corporations came out of the New Deal,
Right.
and corporations were supposed to be a limited partnership between a private entity and a public entity. Public entity being the government, which would grant the corporation status, right? And so the government created these things so that they could fast track the New Deal and the building of the infrastructure in the United States.
Right. It was fascism. It was fascism.
Well, but they said this is a really good deal. You know, let's keep this corporate thing going, right? But that's
Okay.
that's what
Fascism.
how they were. Yeah, that's how they started.
Yeah.
And now
And now the governments are corporations.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. So we've been going for like about an hour and a half.
Yeah, I know.
And we've only started to scratch, just like Jasper's only starting to get scratched right now. We've talked about some interesting stuff, but we had some other things we wanted to talk about. Do you think we should keep going, or do you want to stop it here and we'll pick up?
Why don't we stop it here? Let's give people a teaser.
Yeah. So we do you had something you wanted to say about the new Quentin Tarantino film, and I did watch a little video about him getting hassled by a ridiculous reporter the other day, but I don't really know much else about the film, so that'll give me time to kind of look into that. But you did some really interesting stuff where you found this guy who looked like Jordan Peterson from a while back. What was his name again? He had some numbers for his name.
All right, so if you're going to get into, we should just get into it then.
Oh, you just said give a teaser. So I was just giving a teaser.
Oh man. Okay.
I mean, this will be a whole nother hour if we go.
That was too much of a tease for me. I was really, let's go there.
Oh.
All right, let me just
give a tease.
Let me just show people real quickly. All right, Jasper, you're great.
Jasper's like, but what about me? What about me?
Everybody. Okay, so,
Jasper, my kitty knows that she's she comes over once in a while during the show, but I don't know where she is. Go play with Olivia, Jasper. Go find my kitty and play.
All right, so this will be the tease for people.
All right.
So here we have Jordan Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
And then over here in this window is a fellow by the name of Brother 12.
Mm-hmm.
And Brother 12 was this dude. His last name was Wilson. And he was born in the 1800s, I think around 1876, right around there.
Mm-hmm.
And, or I think it was, well, when we get into things around 1876. Anyway, he became the leader of a cult called the Aquarian Society.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that was his cult. And here, let me just punch up his bio really quickly. I just want to make sure that we get all the details in. Okay. So he was born in 1878, so I was right on that part. And his full name was Edward Arthur Wilson. And his community was creating this group called the Aquarian. It was based on the Theosophical Society.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's called the Aquarian Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And he founded it in 1827 on Nanaimo, which is an island off the coast of British Columbia. And then he went even further.
Whoa, that's weird. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Into that island chain and found another island that was smaller where he started this kind of agrarian community. Mm-hmm. And it was basically a doomsday cult because he knew that something absolutely devastating was going to happen to the world and the economy. And he was actually right.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Great Depression is about to happen. And he's like intuiting the Great Depression getting ready to take place.
Mm-hmm.
So when he was in his 40s, I think around 43, he was in the south of France and he was ailing and he was in a hospital bed in the south of France. And he had this image of this ankh floating before him. and he got this message that he was the reincarnation of Akhenaten, and that he was the 12th member of this spiritual group that was going to essentially be like the Great White Brotherhood and run the planet. That's according to him. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So he eventually goes from the south of France. I don't know how he gets to Vancouver, but he starts to write and he starts to preach this Aquarian gospel. All these people are drawn to him, and they donate lots of money because they had a very serious community. They're growing food.
Oh, kind of like he will donate lots of money to Jordan Peterson.
Well, that's part of the story. They're,
Right.
they're both very
Jordan Peterson, I mean,
materialistic. Let's put it
Jordan Peterson, before he left Patreon, was making $75,000 a month on Patreon.
So he finally left Patreon?
He and Dave Rubin both left as a protest over the Sargon of Akkad thing. So
Yeah.
I don't know. They're both using PayPal and I think maybe Subscribestar or other things. They're apparently we're supposed to build a platform. We haven't heard really much about it, a free speech kind of Patreon platform or something. But this is very interesting. When I saw you talking about this, and I'm just going to tease a little bit, but I have been mulling over for several years, but it just sort of came to a new level of clarity for me. What secret societies really are about, what past lives, reincarnation, future selves, all this stuff, what this stuff really is. And when I saw you talking about this, I'm like, this is an opportunity for us to talk about this, see if we can tie some of this stuff together. So you guys stay tuned for the next Matrix Mash. We're going to get into, what cults, what secret societies are, and can you choose your reincarnation?
Right. And I basically, I kind of stumbled upon it, but I did their charts.
Yeah.
And I think there's a very clear case to be made that he is the reincarnation of Brother 12.
All right. So guys, hang on to that. And we're going to get into that, on our next Matrix Mash, which will be maybe a week and a half or something like that. I have some things to take care of this week, but I always really love doing these with you, Robert. That I love to just kind of, whip through all the different topics. And we kind of had started to this morning. We had plans to talk about different stuff than we did, but it all kind of always works out and is very cool. And I really enjoy it. So I'm really looking forward to that next one. And
me too.
And I'm sure something else will come up to talk about by then too.
Yeah. And I just want to, let people know that, it's okay to be a white cat. It really is.
I saw you did a show that was called that, and I started watching it, but I don't think I ever got to the resolution of the point with the white cat. So, but that is a terrifying looking cat. So
it's okay to be a white cat.
It's also okay to be an obnoxious, person that talks too much and has a sort of terrifying laugh. So, all things are okay in this world, right? As long as they're not forced on you.
As Crowley once said, everything is permitted.
Sonia says it too. She's like, there are no laws. Everything is allowed, right? I love Sonia. Anyway, all right, guys. So this is going to wrap it up for this Matrix Mash, which I don't even remember which number it is, but I'll figure it out.
I think it's 10. 10.
It's 10? All
10
right.
10 is in Brother 10.
10. Okay. So maybe we'll just skip 11 and do 12. I don't know. So you guys can find Robert at robertphoenix.com. Get a reading. Check out 15 Minutes of Flame and Friday Farcast and the Sunday Night Astrology Show. He's doing awesome stuff over there. And you guys can hit me up at Off Planet Media YouTube channel Off Planet Media, patreon.com/Off Planet Media. Or you can connect with me on Facebook at Emily Moyer if you would like an intuitive, esoteric nutrition consultation. Let's get to it. We'll see you next time. Have a good one, guys. All right. Peace. Stop. Yes.